Okay, two things are in play here. Number one, I've been behind the eight ball a lot this past month, probably the past couple of months. I had technical issues, I was sick, and so things got delayed and it snowballed, and I'm always behind. I'm, like really trying very hard to play catch up, and it's been very difficult to do that. So certain things have slipped through the cracks. Like I never did a special video for episode 650 for One Piece. And so I need to do something for that because I want to keep up the tradition of every 50 episodes I do something just to mark the milestones. We're running out of real estate here, right? So might as well squeeze a little few extra views out of this franchise. Or you could frame it as, if you want to be less cynical, frame it as I just want to do something for people that are enjoying watching this stuff, a little bit of extra content, since I'm not doing the weekend stuff anymore. The other thing going on is I'm currently exporting a video, so I'm kind of spinning my wheels. I can't do anything when I'm exporting a video because the computer is slow, and if I try to do a reaction, like which is I've got one app recording me, another app playing a video, or a browser playing a video, and I'm exporting. Those are three things, and three things makes the glitches somewhere. Either I lose sync in the audio, the screen recorder, the thing record the web camera thing will crash, or the QuickTime file will explode. Like all kinds of things happen. So it doesn't work. But I can record something and export at the same time. See, that's not three things. That's only two things. Apparently, a computer can handle two things. So I needed to record something without it being a reaction. Well, the best thing to do there is a Q&A, right? So that solves both problems. I have 20 minutes. I'm spinning my wheels. I need to do something. Might as well do a surprise bonus Q&A of things I haven't touched on because I haven't been doing the comment corner very much lately. So this is just surprise comment corner video. Going back to my idea about the Gulliver's Travels being an influence to One Piece, this is a comment from episode 642. By the way, I'm only going to do comments up to 650. So I went back a month. And I'm looking at comments from patrons and from people once this stuff went live. And comments from people talking about, up to episode 650. But yeah, this is 642 is from HIG. It's interesting when you think about it because One Piece we've had the giants, the little people, and the Sky Islands. So the only voyage missing out of Gulliver Travels at this point is the Horse People. Although many people believe that the author's inspiration for the Sky Islands was an anime film from the 80s called La Puta, Castle in the Sky. Though in a roundabout way, that would ultimately still be Gulliver's Travels because that was inspired by the Laputians or whatever they were called. The flying island that was in Gulliver's Travels. That's true. I think I'm right. Like I'm not saying it's a huge thing, but I'm saying Journey to the West and Gulliver's Travels are two major influences. Now he probably had a shit ton of influences. There's probably all kinds of shit he read. Riverworld. I was thinking about this recently. I think Riverworld was an inspiration. And if it wasn't an inspiration, I think it's something any One Piece fan should enjoy. You may not have heard about it by now. It's Philip Jose Farmer. Came out, I think the books came out in the 70s. So there's a really good chance you've never heard of the series. They've tried a couple adaptations on Sci-Fi Channel. They both bombed. Nothing worked. The novels are fantastic. Basically, the premise is everybody who ever lived on Earth throughout the entire history of Earth suddenly wakes up on an alien planet called the Riverworld. And the planet is basically a river, winds around all the way around the Earth, or whatever the planet is. It's a bigger planet, by the way. So it winds around up. I think it goes like this. Like if you imagine, half of a globe. Like you know how the map was half a globe. I think the river goes like this, all the way up, or it may wrap all the way around the world and go up. I can't remember exactly, but it does something like that, right? And so everybody wakes up on the side of a river, but the river covers the entire world. That's why it's called Riverworld. And so you sit there and you're going to pop up in a spot. So you die, right? You remember dying, and then you suddenly wake up, and there's a bunch of people around you, and you're all naked. There's a bunch of people around you, and maybe Genghis Khan is next to you, and a maid from 1700s France could be on the other side of you, and in front of you is somebody you went to high school with, and then a couple feet away, maybe your brother. Because sometimes people show up together. Sometimes they show up, like you can have one French in the middle of a bunch of English people, or one Spanish person in the middle of a bunch of, 5th century Huns or something, right? So basically, it's exploring history in a science fiction venue. You got what happens to Julius Caesar after he dies. This is his second life. So that's essentially. But that may not sound like it's very connected to One Piece, but it's an adventure story. They're traveling up and down the river trying to find out what the hell's going on. Why are they here? Who put them here? Who's in charge? How do we find the control panel? What do we do, right? So that it's a swashbuckling adventure story set on a river instead of in the ocean. I think you would like it. And I wonder if there was any element of this that that could be something, a little tiny element, just the various colorful people you'd meet, right? Like these are not, it's not a new concept, so maybe he's never heard of Riverworld, but it's possible. There could be so many different inspirations. But I do believe, I don't think anything would convince me Gulliver's Travel is not one of his inspirations. It's got to be, along with Journey to the West. I'm sure that was another one, right? His name is Monkey D. Luffy. Come on. This is Hunter Stone from episode 599. I may start something in the comments because this is a big debate in the One Piece community. But I want to see Shanks versus Mihawk. What's interesting about this is the further I get into this story, the less interested I am in the combat. And that may be the opposite of whatever everybody else believes. I get more and more interested in the world building. I get more and more interested in Void Century and what the One Piece is and what the Devil Fruits are. Specifically, if I could ask, if I was dying next week, and the Make a Wish Foundation said I could ask the author one question, he would answer it honestly in as much detail as I needed. I would ask him what's the deal with the Devil Fruits. Assuming this hasn't already been answered in the story. If I only had a week to live, I'd just rush through the rest of these episodes, right? But the Devil Fruit thing has been the most interesting to me. So I don't care about Shanks fighting Mihawk. I don't care about anybody fighting anybody at this point. It's interesting to watch, don't get me wrong, and I definitely want to see the Beastmaster, Kadio, get his ass kicked. I want to see Doffy really get his ass kicked. The only time I care about the fights now is when there's an emotional stake. I don't have an emotional stake with Mihawk or Shanks. Mihawk seems fine. He's kind of chill. Shanks is whatever. I honestly, I'm not sure I understand the fan base's obsession with Shanks. Maybe we get more scenes with him later. Dude has had 0.5% screen time the entire effing series. He's had almost no screen time. His name gets brought up quite a bit. But we don't know him. We know Whitebeard more than we know Shanks. Whitebeard has had more screen time than Shanks. You can't care about somebody. You can't give a shit about somebody if you never see any screen time with them. That's just what it is. I don't care. Start showing me some goddamn screen time. They're doing it for a reason, I'm sure. I think he's probably going to end up evil. I saw another video yesterday. It's like Shanks never loved... it was a theory video. It said Shanks never loved Luffy. Well, I don't know. Was he on Luffy's island for a year or two? Would you even love him? He was a kid. Would you even know a kid? If you're not related to him, could you love a kid? I don't know. I mean, I guess if you're shopping for a son, I suppose people's personalities don't really evolve until they're older. So I don't know. I mean, he was just a little kid, but you could definitely see something in him though. You saw he had the fire in the belly. You saw he had a lot of initiative. And by the time... I'm a little unclear on this, by the way. The timeline. Did Luffy eat the devil fruit after Ace left the island? Or before? Because I thought the original timeline was, and we didn't know about Sabo at the time, but originally the timeline I thought was Ace leaves... Shanks arrives. Luffy gets close to Shanks. Luffy eats the devil fruit. Shanks sacrifices an arm for him. Gives him the hat. Shanks F's off. And Luffy's on the island by himself for a couple years until he's old enough to leave. That's what I thought happened. But was he really small when he ate the devil fruit? Wait a minute. Didn't he have the fruit powers? Wasn't he trying to figure out his fruit powers even when Sabo and Ace were there? This is why I need to watch this series 2 or 3 times. The shit's starting to get muddled in my brain. I can't remember now. What that would mean is if he ate the devil fruit when he was really young, like 5 or 6. I believe that is because I remember talking about how the fact like his fruit powers are ineffective when the 3 of them were trying to fight together. Isn't that what happened? His powers were ineffective. The other 2 didn't have powers, and they helped him like with a couple of these beasts or something like that. A couple of these animals they were fighting. Yeah, I think so. Okay. So he was really young then. So that means Shanks was around for a couple years on the island, and Luffy wasn't close to Ace. Maybe Luffy hadn't met Ace yet. So maybe the way the timeline works, because I can't look at official timeline. I'm afraid of spoilers. The spoil beyond whatever watch, right? But okay, I think what happened was Shanks shows up, hangs out, gets to know Luffy. Luffy eats the devil fruit. Shank leaves. Garp shows up, takes Luffy to the criminal people, and that's where he meets Ace. That's what happened, right? Because I was like, where is Ace when Shanks is here? Did Shanks ever meet Ace at that point? He didn't. Even it's kind of ironic they were on the same island for a while, and it ends up Ace ends up working for one of Shanks' competitors. We assume that the Emperors are competing with each other. That's kind of interesting. Okay, anyway, like you guys, this is such obvious shit to you. I'm sitting there trying to stumble and remember. I'm sure it's very boring to watch me do that, but this just shows I'm a little unclear of this stuff. I don't know how much it matters at this point. It's just for my own edification. I'm just a little curious myself how exactly it all played out. But the point of all this is Luffy cares about Shanks because he spent 2 years with him. I haven't spent 2 years with Shanks. I've spent maybe a grand total of 5 total minutes of screen time with him over the course of a series, as we're almost up to 700 episodes. Which is 700 episodes, which we're talking about is probably over 200 hours of content at this point. 200 hours of screen time. If we take out the credits, and we take out the recaps, and we just talk about actual episodes, we're talking 150, 180 hours of content at this point. 180 hours of screen time. Shanks has been on the screen for maybe 5 minutes. So why do I care? I don't. Mihawk has had more screen time, and he's had very little. So that's where I stand with all this, right? Like, if they want me to get excited about Shanks, you need to start having me spend time with him. Other characters caring about him isn't enough. It only takes you but so far. Maybe the manga had more screen time with Shanks. You know what I mean by screen time. Maybe there's more screen time later in the series that I haven't gotten to yet. But at this point, there's nothing happening there. So I care about the fights when I have an emotional stake. I want to see Daffy get his face ground into the concrete. By the way, where am I at as I record this, just so you know? The last episode I watched was 693. Which means today or tomorrow I'm going to also be recording the special 700 episode video. I'm actually going to do that because I think I had posted something for a Q&A for that. I believe I did. So that'll help me. That'll help guide my Q&A for that one. It's also another reason why I'm only going up to 650 here. But yeah, so as of 693, I can't wait to see Daffy get his face ground in the concrete because F that guy. I hate that son of a bitch. So that's when I care about the fights, right? I don't care about the fights just for the spectacle of the fight. Which is, for me, is what Shanks versus Mihawk would be. Just spectacle, right? This is Wrathful Viper, I think, is the name. My favorite villain laugh is Gecko Moria. Through a Bark was the first One Piece arc I ever watched. Yeah, I mean, a lot of times it's just the first one you ever saw. Some people, the first lightsaber fight they ever saw was Obi-Wan Kenobi versus Darth Vader in episode 4. So they still have a lot of nostalgia for that fight. I saw a reaction to it yesterday. Somebody had watched the prequels and then they watched this episode. They'd never seen this movie. So they watched prequels and then they watched Star Wars, right? The episode 4. And they said it was a slow, boring fight. And it is. If you've seen all the other lightsaber fights. There's been some great lightsaber fights. That's not one of them. But if that's the first one you ever saw, which is a lot of us if we were watching this shit when the movies came out, we're old now, but if we were, then we're going to have nostalgia and we're not going to feel like that's old and slow. We're going to be wrapped up in the emotion of it all, right? It's the last time these two will face off. They faced off 3 times. In the prequels, in the Obi-Wan Kenobi TV series, and here, this was the third and final fight. The rubber match, I guess you'd call it. The tiebreaker. And so there's all that emotion wrapped up into it. So for me, what's my favorite villain laugh? I think my first villain that really got under my skin, the first villain really got under my skin. I hated Arlong, but the first one who actually got under my skin was Crocodile. So because my first thing that came to mind was what is my favorite villain laugh? It is Crocodile. Crocodile's my favorite villain laugh, but I think that's because he's the first villain who really truly got under my skin, the first big bad, right? But maybe not. He just had kind of a it. He's just a dick, but he's a smug asshole. And I think his laugh was actually tactical in some ways. He's like he was another one of these people. I think he likes to get under people's skin, literally and figuratively. So I don't know. I just think that by the way, it's interesting that he had the Logia fruit type, right, Crocodile, which means unless you have Haki and you can use it, you can't really mess with him. But Luffy still found a way through water, right? So if the guy had been lava, if he had been water, if he had been acid, poison, whatever, light, some of these other things, the Logia type fruits, which are basically they can make yourself insubstantial. Luffy would have had no chance against any of these people. He faced the one person he actually had a chance to defeat because of water. Water negates sand. Isn't that interesting? Like, what if somebody who's like made of water, like water is their power, had come up against him, Luffy, and Luffy had some way to make his skin really hot? Would the water have turned into steam, and then that would have been a way to defeat them? Or was water versus sand, was that the only thing? Blood is, also water, and, sweat's water. Water versus sand, is that the only way that Luffy could have beat somebody with this Logia type fruit that early on in the series? I think so. That's very well done by the author, because the author let him face somebody that, under other circumstances, he could have never beaten. And found a way to do it without him getting into the Haki too early in the series, right? Klaus, this is episode 625. We don't have any time for your side quest. He said, he was quoting me saying that in that episode. You could have said this plenty of times in One Piece, because most of the stuff is a side quest. Fair enough. Who knows what the hell is a side quest and what's a main quest? Because I think anytime Robin encounters one of these monuments, it suddenly becomes a main quest. It's crucial. Like, you could say Fishman Island was a side quest, except we got some very interesting information. She became one of the 3 weapons, or didn't become, but we discovered she's one of the 3 weapons, and she was able to read another one of these monuments, right? So, everything matters, and nothing matters, right? So, it all depends on the end result, and you won't know until you do it. So, that kind of fits the heart of the show. The theme of the show is exploration, right? You can't know until you explore. It's not like a video game has very obvious side quests and very obvious main quests. You can even see it. So a lot of times it'll be a tree or a map, or this is what you do to fulfill the main quest, and these are the side quests, and they're delineated in such a way that you know it's main quest and you know it's side quest. Here we don't know, just like real life. I walked 2 miles to the grocery store yesterday. Was that a side quest, or the fact that I got groceries I can eat to keep me alive, was that a main quest? We don't know in life. Like, if I had met somebody and they wanted to invest in a film, that would have been a main quest for real, right? But since I didn't meet anybody like that, then it's just a side quest, right? So, I think that I don't know that there's anything we can call a side quest in this series, because this series is about the adventure. This series is a side quest. If you wanted to do a speed run through what the only shit that actually matters to the end result of the entire series, we won't know until we get to the end result of the entire series. But I bet it'd be less than 100 episodes, maybe 50. This really is about the journey. This, more than any other show I've ever watched, this show's about the journey, and I love it all. That's why I watch the filler, right? And then everybody talk I recorded a video for Hunter one time, answering his thing about the death, and I've never gotten around to editing it. Like I said, I'm behind. But, he's called me out, why do you want people to die? And this is my just very short answer that I took a hell of a lot longer in the other video to answer is, don't put people in danger of dying, and the show shouldn't put people in danger of dying, and then be weirded out if people are like, people never die. Because the show's constantly putting people in jeopardy of dying. But if they never pay that off, we're not going to take you seriously anymore. It's like the kid threatening to hold his breath until he dies. We know he's not going to hold his breath until he dies. It's kind of like the boy cried wolf, right? So it's not that I want people to die. It's that the show is constantly putting people in that situation and then never carrying through with it. Never paying it off. Now, never. I mean, you can be Mr. Nitpicky and be like, yes, people die in the show. Yes, they do. But you know what I mean, right? So, show me you're serious by killing off one of the Straw Hats. Get off your ass. But no, I don't want people to die. It's not that. The show put me in this position. But anyway, HIG says this for episode 660. Wait, I'll go ahead and say it since I already said it, but I shouldn't. I'm surprised he was left alive. And then he was quoting me there. And then HIG says, remember, this is One Piece. Okay, well, the video is finished exporting. So let me do one more question and then we'll call it a wrap. Because I also have to change over because the comments are on this channel, but I'm uploading it to the other channel. Let's find a good comment here. This is somebody, I don't recognize their name. They've had some good comments, but I just don't remember the name off the top of my head. It's KEZMIK, I think. This is from episode 639. In response to your intro about if One Piece world has any sort of creative media or novels, I'd like to say there would be, since in Jaya, when they were speaking to Monty Blank Cricket, whoever the hell that is, the guy with the monkeys helping the Straw Hats. Oh yeah, I do remember who that is. Okay. I'm glad you added that clarification. They spoke about the stories from the North Blue being about Monty Blank Noland, and since they mentioned it's like one of the well-known stories in the North Blue, I'd be inclined to assume there are other stories that are true, and probably fictional books that have stories and such in them. That's a very good point. Yeah. The evidence of one infers more, right? If you can pick up one book, that probably is not the only book in the entire history of the world. One infers more. So that is true. Another example, on top of my head, would be when Robin met the little girl in the Snow Island during the time the Straw Hats split up. The girl mentioned she was able to draw several islands because of the book she has read. So I would most likely say One Piece world does have quite a few forms of creative entertainment like that, especially with how wacky the world is. Somebody also mentioned that in a future storyline there's going to be a manga or something that is a big deal. That may be later on. It may be in this video. I can't remember the comments for 639. I don't want to re-explore that because I don't want to be spoiled. But it sounds like, that they also have manga and stuff like that in this world. It makes sense. They had cartoons way back in the day. They had cartoon porn. Imagine that. If you will. Drawn figures, very poorly drawn by our standards of today. And people being sexually excited by that, right? I don't know, man. It was a rough world before we had TV and the internet, wasn't it? On that somewhat somber note, that'll be a wrap for this video, but the one for the 750 episodes from now, which I guess will be about 2.5 weeks for you guys, we'll have a much more detailed, much longer Q&A video.